So if you've ever hired a client success manager and you have found yourself wondering months later why you're not getting any referrals or any upsells and all the client problems are still landing on you as the founder, this video is going to show you why. And the answer almost always comes down to just one thing: who you hired and what they are wired to do. Most CS hires in the online business space are warm, they're empathetic, they're really caring about the clients. They're great at managing relationships, but they are terrible at having uncomfortable conversations. And that sounds like a perfect combination for a CSM until you realize that the most valuable thing a CSM does for your business, things like asking for a referral, pitching an upsell, pushing back on a client who's kind of giving you some BS, all require the exact skills that this person does not have. So if you're the founder of a coaching or service-based business who has a CS hire or is about to make one, this video is going to show you the one framework that changes how you think about that hire forever. So before we get into the hiring specifics, let me give you a quick tutorial on what the DISC assessment is. The DISC is a behavioral assessment backed by Tony Robbins that measures the 4 dimensions of how somebody naturally operates at work. The D stands for dominance, and this is usually reflective of how a person responds to challenges and adversity. High D people are very direct, very results-oriented, and very comfortable with conflict. They push, they close, and they don't back down from a hard conversation. I stands for influence, and this is how a person interacts with and persuades others. High I people are usually very enthusiastic, optimistic, relationship-driven, very naturally compelling. They build rapport very fast, and they usually make people feel really good about saying yes. The S is for steadiness, and this is going to reflect how a person responds to the pace or the energy in their environment. High S people are patient, loyal, consistent, yet deeply uncomfortable with conflict or with pressure. They're the people who everyone loves working with, yet they're also the same people who don't like having hard conversations. C stands for conscientiousness. This reflects how a person responds to rules and procedures. High C people are usually very analytical, detail-oriented, process-driven, and risk-averse. They love building systems and hate making asks that don't feel perfectly timed. Now, here's why this matters for your CS and sales hires. The online business industry has been hiring high S and high C people into CS roles for years. And don't get me wrong, those people are genuinely wonderful at the support and relationship management side of the job, but they're really uncomfortable with the conversations that actually drive revenue. Things like a referral ask, an upsell pitch, or pushing back on a client when they're making excuses instead of doing the work. And when a high S or C person is asked to have those conversations, one of two things is going to happen. They either avoid them entirely and the revenue opportunity disappears, or they have them so apologetically that the client doesn't even take them seriously. So here's the profile of the CSM that actually makes you the most backend revenue. The best CSM you will ever hire will have at least a 40 or a 50 in either the D or the I category. A CSM with a strong D score can have a hard conversation without flinching. When a client is making excuses for why they're not doing a work, a high D score is going to call that out directly. When the moment is best to ask for a referral or an upsell, a high D CSM will make the ask comfortably and confidently. And a CSM with a strong I score can make those asks feel like a natural part of the relationship instead of just an additional transaction. High I CSMs are naturally very compelling. They build the kind of rapport that makes a client want to refer you somebody, not because they were asked to, but because they genuinely want their friends to have the same experience that they've just had. Now, what doesn't work for a CSM is someone with a very high S or C score, but not a very high D or I score. That person will do a great job at supporting the client to get to their goal, but they're not going to be inclined to insert themselves into the conversations that will generate your backend revenue. Now, here's the flip side of this conversation that most founders never think about until their backend is a hot mess. On the sales side of the business, the most dangerous hire that you can make is someone who is an extremely high D, yet a very low I. High D closers are incredibly effective, do not get me wrong. They are direct, they are persistent, they handle objections without any hesitation. And on the surface, that looks like exactly who you want in a closer. But a high D, very low I closer has a very specific blind spot. They are wired to get the yes. Things like the relationship, the fit, the long-term outcome for the client. Those things are always going to be secondary to closing the deal. And when the relationship and the fit always comes second, that closer will take money from anyone with a pulse. And the client who should not have been closed becomes your back-end problem, which means your CS team is going to be managing the fallout from clients who never should have been inside your program in the first place. The ideal sales hire for somebody in a high-ticket coaching or service-based business is someone with a very high D, but also a comparably high I, because the I is what is going to make them actually care about whether the client is a fit or not. A high D, high I closer doesn't just want the yes, they want the right yes. And they are able to holistically see the bigger mission of the company, which is serve the right clients. Now, don't get me wrong, the DISC assessment does not replace your judgment. It simply adds a layer of information that tells you how your team is wired to behave. Whenever I come into the back end of a coaching or service-based business as an outsourced client success director, and we have to hire or flip a team, I am always DISC testing everyone that we consider for any role. So if you want help thinking about the structure of your team in your coaching or service-based business and who you have in what roles, click the first link below to see about bringing my team into your business to become your outsourced client success director.